When we lose someone close, we often expect grief for that person. But what we don't expect is the grief for the people around us that are still alive. Sometimes the person who passed away is the only person holding the relationships in the family together. Death exposes family bonds that were never as strong as we thought they were. For me, when I lost my grandparents, I also lost my remaining family members. And it was by choice. When you lose someone that you loved and it changes the family dynamics, you start to understand how those relationships that remain have impacted you. And the lens that you view those relationships through is permanently changed. Because the filter of that person's involvement that held the family together or maybe kept those relationships in line is now no longer there. I remember so many times that my uncle was doing something that I felt was wrong, and my grandma would tell me to choose the peaceful way, to bite my lip, to don't say anything that I would regret. And the funny thing of it was that my grandma was the type of person who would do that exercise. Maybe you've heard of it, where you write a letter, getting out all of your emotions, your anger, your frustration with someone else. And in typical tradition of that exercise, you would just throw the letter away or you would burn it. My grandma chose a different route. She would put a stamp on it, put it in the mail, and wait for the phone call when the postman delivered it to the person she sent it to. She was the funniest person I ever met, but she did keep peace in the family. And she did prevent things from blowing up out of proportion. But when she was no longer there, I was able to stand up for myself in ways that I hadn't been able to stand up for myself before. Now, I'm not saying that I started a bunch of stuff after my grandma died. But when my uncle made decisions that directly impacted me and that I felt weren't fair, I was able to call him out on that. And of course, he didn't like that. For me, one of the ultimate deciding factors was that about a year and a half after losing my grandparents, I met the woman that was going to become my wife. After meeting her, there was no way that I wanted to introduce her to my uncle or my cousins or put her through any of those strains of that relationship. It was painful, toxic, and not healthy for me to be in anymore. And meeting someone that truly cared about me motivated me to have the standard in my life where I would no longer accept that behavior from others, whether they were family members, people I just met, or whoever they may be. I loved myself enough to say that I wouldn't allow someone to treat me that way anymore. So how will you know when it's time to cut those ties, when it's a toxic relationship? Really, it's not something that's going to happen at the snap of the fingers. You need to slow down and take your time. You need some introspection and reflection to ask yourself things like, am I overreacting? Am I just reacting, or am I actually responding to a long-form toxic relationship? Also ask yourself how this decision may impact you later. Will you regret it? Are you doing something that will impact your morality later on in the way that you view yourself? Will you have doubts, regrets, or shortcomings later on? If you make this decision and you're still able to look yourself squarely in the mirror and look deeply into your eyes and feel confident in that decision that you're doing it from a place of loving yourself and setting the relationship free for all parties involved, then it's probably time to break it loose. Also, you need to keep in mind if you're just being self-centered, and this goes back to reacting versus responding. Are you doing this for selfish reasons, or is there actually something to it? Are you just being short-sighted? Are you acting immaturely? Or is there something deeper that you need to address? One of the biggest parts of this is giving yourself permission to let go. And that comes back to loving yourself. And I know that that probably sounds really weird coming from a guy, but you need to love yourself so much that that's not an option anymore. That not taking care of yourself, that not honoring yourself, that not exposing yourself to, or that don't treat you right, or don't respect you, or don't honor your opinions, your feelings, and your thoughts through this is no longer an option. You get to a place that you love yourself so strongly, so passionately, that you only want the best for yourself. It's helpful, like Louise Hay encouraged in some of her meditations, to look at other people from the perspective that they were children. Look at yourself as if you were a child, that smaller, younger version of yourself that you have extreme compassion for. Would you let that person be treated in this way? Would you let others treat that person in this way. Also imagine what it's like to live life without these people. Do you feel relief? How does it feel? Is there a weight lifting from your shoulders when they're no longer there? When you're no longer responsible to them or feel responsible to them? What does that feel like? If it feels freeing and unlimiting, then it's probably time to cut those ties. It's also important to take a look within and ask yourself if you've already cut those emotional ties, but maybe guilt from the deceased loved one, or even just your guilt for your responsibility to your family, is the only thing keeping you in that relationship. If that's the case, then it is definitely time to cut those ties and to start living a life that's empowered. Because as surprising as it may be, oftentimes the person that you lose through death isn't just the person who died. And that's a totally normal part of it. Have you ever experienced the deaths that surround death? If you have, and this has spoken to you, please leave a comment below. Let's connect on this and explore our experiences together. Thanks for watching.